So a lot of people these days are saying things like, well, I just admire Charlie Kirk so much. He was just able to be right there. Like his mind was like a steel trap. He could just shout off this stuff. He knew exactly what to say in the exact right moment. And my mind doesn't work like that. I've heard that at least a dozen times, almost always from women who admire Charlie Kirk but know they could never do that. And what I think is important to point out is that that's true if you want to be like Charlie Kirk in the area he was strong and you're not strong. But you made a great point there. You have answered this question probably 500 times, and you're not exaggerating, because you have responded to certain questions online again and again, trying to reword it, trying to make it clearer, shorter, better examples. And I am the same way, but not with the same issues that you're using.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm that way when people ask about addiction or codependency or sexual dysfunction or generational sin, because that's the stuff I've done a ton of work on.
Welcome to our back porch. We are two authors and artists, happily married for over 20 years, parenting two boys, and sharing glimpses of our lives with you. Lean in and listen to our unedited conversations as we share on art, parenting, politics, culture, and how our Christian faith colors it all. I'm Dale Fincher with Jonalyn Fincher here beside me, and this is our back porch conversation. Today's conversation is, looking at my notes.
Well, I think it'll probably be in the title, so maybe not.
Oh, you're right.
They're like, why is he taking so long?
Forget it. Forget it. Forget it. You already know. Why we are careful with online political conversations.
Yeah, this question really came out of something I asked you about how you figure out what to pop in on in a political argument, and when do you know to just be quiet and read and try to figure out what is going on.
Yeah, and which conversations matter, and because we all know talking about politics in particular, as well as religion, which is why our forefathers, grandparents, great-grandparents, and great-great-grandparents started a tradition of never talking about those things, because when they talk about them, they turn into a dumpster fire. Especially when you're in the public square places and talking about it, or around the Thanksgiving meal. People don't like to, they love to get in arguments. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody, either they're like, oh, I don't even want to talk about it. Or they're like, oh yeah, let's jump right in. I'm glad I brought my boxing gloves today and see if I can take get a couple of good punches in on your jaw. And so it's annoying because you want to be productive and you want to be helpful. And you want to shine a light.
But you also don't want to be rude or divisive or contribute to the ubiquitous comment of, it's just, we're so divided as a nation these days. God. We're just so divided. Usually
I know.
That means somebody doesn't want to talk anymore.
And I know what you mean by divisive. And I think other people, there's two different ways to be divisive. Even in that, you're like, I don't want to be divisive. But like, well, whenever you tell the truth about anything, you're going to be divisive, and it's because there are people who don't want the truth about things, and so they automatically separate themselves. But I know what you mean, I don't want to be divisive, meaning I don't want to hurt relationships.
Well, it's a very, this is what's hard for me, is that political discourse, I would say, why are we so careful about controversial discourse? Because I'm not as interested in jumping into political discussions because I'm ignorant about most of the motivations behind the political issues of the day. I do not read up on the news, and I don't even know, is that an important topic or what's behind it? And if I jump in, oftentimes Dale, afterwards, you'll say to me, well, actually, that's because this was in the news, and so they're just repeating the sound bites of what their political party told them to say.
Yeah.
And you said at the very beginning there, how do you know which are the important topics to jump in on?
Yeah.
And my experience, I know motivated in part because I'm a woman, is I don't want to have politically charged or a powerful or a controversial conversation with someone unless I can see it being fruitful in their life. I'm not interested in just proclaiming my perspective or my views.
Yes. And by fruitful in their life, you mean having some sort of practical application, or it makes for the friendship deepen? What do you mean by that?
That's a good question, because it might not make the friendship deepen. It might be the last time I talk to them. Fruit to me means that they will pause long enough to let the truth penetrate their defenses. And truth can completely change the trajectory of a person's practical decisions, but I'm not interested or worried about making that happen, because God can do that in the person's life. I want to have the conversations that they are ready to receive the truth that I can offer, and vice versa, because they're going to say things I want to think about more deeply with God.
I hear you. And so there's two things you're saying there that I'm hearing. One, you want to make sure their defenses are down. They're not in a posture of the porcupine with all their little pricklies out. And the other one is, this sounds more like on an individual level rather than an audience level. Because usually what you're saying does work with individuals, and the idea of like, I just want to announce my particular view, that doesn't work with individuals at all. They're like, hi, individual. I'm going to throw my blowhorn at you, there's my view. And that's more of an audience thing. It's like street corner. He that has ears to hear, let him hear kind of thing.
Yes. And that's why online political conversations or controversial conversations are so difficult for me. I don't know who's listening.
You can't read the room.
I don't know where they are.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm just being a foghorn, blowing obnoxiously. And I've done enough work speaking publicly and had enough people write reviews online about my speaking and my writing to know there are always people who hear what you're going to say and they're going to twist it and mishear you. And I don't think I'm afraid of that, but I'm not interested in sharing, or I don't feel as motivated, or you know what, and this is probably because of the stage of life I am in actively working with the boys so much. I don't have the interest to be publicly seen right now.
Yeah.
I have interest for my artwork to be seen and to minister to others through my visual work, but I don't feel as much that I need to be seen or heard from a platform. And that may very well change. But in this season of my life, I'm okay not being
That makes
heard.
sense. It's so helpful not to have a platform, actually. I should say helpful. It's more peaceful. And as an Enneagram 9 who loves peace, the platform is a thing for me that I always feel in tension with. Because
I know you do.
I feel compelled that I need to participate. But at the same time, I don't like the turmoil that comes with it.
I know, and that's why I had this question for you, because you intentionally put yourself into conversations online, mostly on X these days, but it used to be on Instagram, that are roiling with
all things outside my happy place.
Chaos and misunderstanding and vengeful, evil ideas. Like, you go into the places power is abused and people are being abused. You go in there with your sword of truth and you go in with your shield of faith and you have your breastplate of righteousness strapped on. And I know you are called into these places in a way that really amazes me. So I want you to be able to share a little bit with our listeners, because some people who are listening to us are beginning to feel, or have been asked by God to show up in more public places, whether that's just in their lunchroom at work, or at the city hall meetings for public discussion, or even in their church communities where things are super shallow and they know that more truth can be clearly spoken about God. So I want to ask you, why are you careful? Because you are being online, so it's not just avoidance.
I feel like Michael Scott talking to Toby. Why are you the way that you are?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying you're weird. I'm saying you're amazing.
I'm going to Costa Rica.
You're always hearing the worst in my compliments. Good thing I'm so literal. Can you imagine if all my compliments were in code? You would be so sure that I didn't like you. I really admire your ability to go online.
And you've shared that with me privately many times. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm flattered by that. And I
So
wasn't.
why are you the way that you are?
Oh my goodness. I definitely wasn't always like that. I shied away from the political stuff. And part of like the early years of doing, public life, especially in the world of apologetics and traveling and speaking that, that many people listening to this know about. It was okay to talk about the atheists and how wrong they were.
Mm-hmm.
And it was okay to talk about the culture. Mm-hmm. But the political stuff was like, no, we steer clear of that. Whenever you went to a church, anytime you get to speak in a church, it would always, the tone was, we don't talk about the politics of it. And there's always the 501c3 distinction, and people have it firmly in their heads, we don't cross that line. We don't want to lose our tax exempt status and create controversy with the government. And besides, our job is to preach the gospel.
Mm-hmm. And we've already talked about that in another podcast about how we believe Jesus was political.
And then I moved into another. Then I moved to another era, another chapter of development. And as an artist and doing performances, storytelling, when you get around a lot of artists who are interested in cultural change, they'll tell you stay out of the political arena. That is a waste of time. Mm-hmm. What you should be doing is the thing that's deeper than politics, and that's creating good art, appealing to people's universal sense of humanity and their experiences, the shared experiences we have of suffering and of beauty. It's like what Solzhenitsyn said: when goodness and truth are eroded away, beauty can rise up and do the work of all three. And that's very inspiring. But I have come around from that too and realized that's not it. This is not an either or type of experience. This is a both and experience. You need to create space for liberty so that civilization, which includes the arts and the humanities, in creating to have a place to grow. And if you don't secure a place for liberty, that stuff doesn't happen. In a tyranny, you don't have arts, you have propaganda, because nothing is allowed to breathe to find the truth of things. Mm-hmm. Everything must appeal to the narrative of the regime. Mm-hmm. You have to have liberty in order for civilization to really to do its thing. And so for me, some of what compelled me was, and it was a journey. It wasn't like one day I'm like, I just need to start talking. It was a long journey. But I feel like that it got to a point where I thought, it seems like everything around me has fallen apart. And if all of this were to fall apart and I didn't say anything, I would feel horrible. And not just horrible, I would truly believe that I abandoned my post. I betrayed my people. I betrayed my country. I betrayed the things that I care about. And why would I be betraying them? I'm betraying them because of some beliefs I have that maybe you just talk about the gospel, maybe you just battle atheists, and maybe you just do art. But there's more to life than that. Mm-hmm. I have a neighbor next door. Who's helping him? He just doesn't want cookies. He just doesn't want, the widows to have you make a quilt for them. The best way I learned, I was like, to love your neighbor is to secure the blessings of their liberty and their dignity. And you don't give them just dignity by giving them a quilt or saying, hey, I got the tyrants to pass a law to give you some retirement money. You give them dignity by saying, what is your pursuit of happiness? And how can I get the things out of the way so that you can do that and pursue what happiness really is for you?
Which may mean, to be really controversial, securing their money so they do not have to give into a social security fund, and they can freely invest their own money without the government being the watchdog over their retirement funds.
Right, yeah, exactly. That would be an example. Exactly. And if we look at Aristotle and his idea of eudaimonia, the idea of happiness, which the founders are drawing from, happiness is not just about, I'd be really happy if I could have, a fresh cup of coffee every morning. Who's going to bring it for me? That's not what the happiness means. It means, what does a good, flourishing life look like for you when you are growing to become the best version of yourself? When you're growing to be a whole human being. Because that's what liberty is about, is giving everybody, freeing up everybody to pursue becoming a whole human being. That's what liberty is for.
So it involves really good cups of coffee, but it's drinking the coffee in the pursuit of more than the coffee. There's a quote on our fridge from the book I read, In the Heart of the Family by Elizabeth Googe, that's talking about how there's this house with this beautiful fresco chapel from the Middle Ages. And these young twins who are about 5 years old see the chapel wall and they see the beautiful paintings. And they say, this was the heart of the house, the twin girl said. Just like the kitchen made you feel like you were strong enough and had the energy to go someplace. The fresco in the chapel made you feel like there was some place to go to.
Love that.
And what I hear you saying is the artist is the one who paints the fresco. And the politicians and the apologists are maybe the ones who provide the food. Like, here's the stuff we need to talk about. But it is the Christians who are helping people connect the two, who are saying, here's your food, here's the beauty, and now what's the point of all this? Like, a lot of libertarians are focused on freedom just for the sake of doing whatever they want. Whereas God is saying, and Christians who follow him are saying, no, this cup of coffee, this freedom that you've been given by the government, it's actually to ask yourself, where do you want to go today? And artists are going to show all different versions of where you ought to go. I actually think it's impossible to divorce art from a value system, even if your value system is all is meaningless. Your art communicates what you think about the world, what exists, and how you know it. So all art is philosophical. And even if it's just supposed to be a pretty picture, that itself is a philosophy. So I feel like I'm getting all muddled in this, but my point is, as I'm smelling this beautiful jammy coffee that you're holding in your hands right now, Dale. Oh my gosh, it smells so like, it smells like jam.
This is an awesome coffee.
Grape and raspberry. It's so plummy and delicious. But like, you take such pleasure in your coffee. But if the whole day just held 2 cups of coffee, you would be so meaningless and discouraged. And what I see is when you go online and you have these controversial conversations, often political, they are helping people see, where are you going?
That's it. I have the first line on my bio, which might not be there forever if somebody's listening to this, into the future. But my first line in my bio has been there for a while, is that freedom has a purpose.
On your X account?
At my X account, yeah. Freedom has a purpose. And that, even arriving at that was a struggle. Because when you're around freedom people a lot, like you said, the libertarians, it feels like a boat without a map. Or it feels like an astronaut untethered from his space station. Just floating.
Celebrating space.
Just being the individual.
And celebrating. We're free. Isn't that great? We can be free over there.
I can do circles in the ocean.
We would celebrate nudity, and here we celebrate all drugs being used. Let's use them all. And here, it's very much like
and in that way, it's not any different.
World.
The libertarian is not any different from the tyrant, because the tyrant also is unhinged, because he's not dealing with the purpose of human life. And he's forcing all of society to be unhinged, to be floating around with him in space, or be
subject
doing
to his
circles
excesses.
in the ocean. And I think, I love the analogy you said, because I do think the Christian worldview, the Judeo-Christian worldview, the worldview of the Bible, is both food and fresco.
Yeah,
it is the nourishment, the brass tacks of things, and also where we need to go. Freedom has a purpose. That's why, I've shared it before, things like the First and Second Amendment, which, everybody, it's those are the big controversial ones you see today. You're banning books, or you're censoring speech, or you believe in guns. And it's like, well, the Second Amendment is about arms for the purpose of defending your nation and defending your hearth and home. That's what it's about. Defending your life. Defending innocence.
It's not just guns for the sake of guns.
It's not guns for the sake of guns, and not guns for the sake of, now that you have one, you can kill people with it. And
a lot of people are confused.
That's why it's a protected right. I mean, the Constitution didn't give you that right. God gave you that right, that you could protect the boundaries that you have. And goodness can be protected from evil. But the First Amendment's the same way. We think speech, it can be any speaking that you want and that you have a right to it. Now, the Constitution may protect it that way, but not God. Mm-hmm. If it's just merely you can say whatever you want, you can cut donuts out there in the ocean. It doesn't have a purpose. Mm-hmm. It is always for the sake of telling the truth. So lying is actually not a protected right. I mean, it might be a protected right in the Constitution, but it's not a moral right. God did not give you the right to lie.
Right.
He didn't give you a right to manipulate. And that's why I think so many of these rights can be easily exploited, because they were written down by people who believed that human beings in general pursue the truth and pursue their purpose. But today, because we have become unhinged from that in our philosophy and even in our arts, then it's like, I can subvert this entire system by just telling lies, and the system protects the lie.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And if I can lie long enough and create a system about it, I can get that codified in the public education system.
Yeah.
And those lies can then be propagated everywhere, and before you know it, everybody's given up liberty in the name of liberty.
Yeah.
And that's the damning thing. So, moving into how to have online discourse for me.
And why you're so careful, because there's certain topics you won't touch.
I'm so careful about it. I would say I was less careful about it when I first started off, because I started out doing it around 2017, 2018, when I felt like I need to be the man in the arena. A little man in a very big arena. Very little man. Because as soon as you step into it, you realize there's a lot of smart people. A lot. And there's a lot of them. And not just smart people, but there are these followers of smart people who aren't smart, but they will play bodyguard to the smart guys. And they'll parrot.
There's a lot of parrots.
That's what I mean, bodyguard and parroting.
Yeah.
It's exactly right. Parroting is everywhere. And there's a lot of just trash out there, meaning like it doesn't matter if it's something you support or not. There's a lot of like memes and taglines and cliches that are so oversimplified. They're there just to play gotcha. And to me, playing the gotcha game is not about really being involved in politics. It's just being an annoying twerp. That's not fun. And I know a lot of people who post the annoying memes and be like, ha ha ha, I owned the libs, or I attacked MAGA, or whatever it is that people feel so proud of with their clever little meme. People, I think when they put those out there, they feel some sort of catharsis, or they feel a comfort to say, okay, I said that, I got it off my chest.
Well, I think people feel powerless, and being online can feed that powerlessness.
Excellent point.
And what I notice is when you are online, you're not doing it for the likes or the followers. You've been doing this for so long, and your goal is not influence. Your goal is faithfulness to God with your gifts.
That's it.
So you'll write papers in little chunks here and there, spread out over weeks, months, years, and get 1 or 2 likes on some of them. And some of them you'll get a lot of likes and, as we call it, traction. But you're not measuring your contribution by numbers, which is very rare.
It is, and the hard part is watching so many people, some of them saying similar things, but saying it in a different way, or not getting to the heart of the matter, but they figured out, they know how to understand the public at large, and they know what gets them motivated, moving, sharing, liking, commenting.
Why is that hard for you when you see someone take an idea that you were sharing years ago and it coming out in public and getting a lot of traction?
Well, if it's an idea that I'm sharing and it's something I really believed in, I'm totally cool with that. I'm glad for that.
You guys, those of you listening, I just want to clarify. Dale's being a little cryptic here because he's very weak at tooting his own horn, but I'll toot it for him. Dale has come up with ideas and he shared them publicly, and he'll circulate them and he'll share them again and again. And then he'll find people who follow him sharing the exact same idea, sometimes weeks, sometimes months, sometimes years later. And they will get a lot of praise and publicity and likes and influence, but sometimes they will and sometimes they won't give him credit. And so that's what we're talking about.
Oh yeah, don't ever expect credit online. That's for sure, 100%. Everybody's a thief online. I remember Verl Lindley talking about that.
Yes, he used to say...
He was a pastor at Jonalyn's church when she was growing up, right?
Yep, a legacy pastor. He was there his whole career.
Such a gentle man. And we met with him around the time we got married.
Yeah.
And he said, you know how to get things accomplished in your church? Like, what's the secret? He goes, never worry about who gets the credit. Because you have to understand, again, purpose, if freedom has a purpose, the ideas you're sharing have a purpose. If my purpose is to toot my own horn, or to say, look what I did that, I accomplished that, then the purpose for sharing it is gone.
Yeah.
How silly would that be?
You turned something that was like gold for someone else to use and invest into a stepping stone for yourself to stand taller.
That's right. Can you imagine the Titanic going down, you have a life raft, and everybody that comes over to look at the life raft, you say the purpose of this life raft is for you to look at me and how well I designed this life raft. And everybody's like, dude, drop it down and put it in the water. No. The purpose is not to save lives. That's just written on the side. The purpose of it is for you to see how great I am so you can hire me as a life raft builder.
They're like, we're dying.
I can't hear. Well, we lost another one. I'm going to use this life raft for another purpose, to get in it and save my own hide. But the purpose that I do it for is, like I shared at the beginning, I want my civilization, I want my culture to be saved. And if it goes down in flames, I want it not to be because I was silent and had a wrong view about my part and participation as a citizen of the greatest nation that has ever been made, that has ever existed. Why would I do that? How sad would that be for my legacy? Known or unknown, doesn't matter. I mean, honestly, when I die, the thing that I care about the very most is not that I am remembered. What I care about is that people carry the torch that I faithfully received and carried and made burn brighter for having lived here. And I pass it off. Because my ultimate aim, my ultimate goal is to grow to be a full reflection of God, which will probably take a few million years. But I know that even in my death, God knows my name. He calls me home. And I'll be resurrected in the last day. And I will ride with him. When he comes down to clean up the world, which is the whole point of speaking up at all. That the world will be cleaned. The evil will be vanquished. And the rightful king will reign. And there will be peace on earth. The thing the angels sang about. So I'm just passing on my little flame wherever somebody is holding a candle. Like, here, let me light it for you. And you never know what's going to resonate with people.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I could share 1,000 different things, and it turned out some of the most odd things really resonated. Thank you so much for this and for that. And I'm like, oh yeah, that was a thing I wrestled with myself, and I did put it out there, but I didn't think it would be as important. But it hit the moment for some people in the right way.
I know exactly what you're saying.
You just never know. You just don't know. So what I learned early on, and I was getting my butt kicked when I first started talking about conversations online.
Can you pause for a minute just for me to take a side note?
Yeah.
That's very clarifying, what you just shared. Because a lot of the things I've shared that resonate with people, I have to realize that it is a flame that someone else gave to me.
That's right.
And so I've been entrusted, like in The Giver, as the keeper of these truths, and I have a chance to give them and pass them along to other people, younger people, older people. And it doesn't mean I need honor because I happen to hold the torch for 40 years. That's not what the torch is about. That's not what the truth is about, like the life jacket. And the second thing is, I think it's really neat that you found online social media as such a good place for you to sharpen your skills, which I know you're about to share more about, because X and Instagram allows people like you who do a really good job poring over the ideas in private to then work out a careful, thoughtful response in public. It rewards that with other thoughtful, articulate writers, which is what you are, Dale. It's not as good for people who like the thrill of being in the moment and coming up with responses like shotgun, like bam, 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 bam. And you're not, you self-admitted, you're not good at debate because in the moment, you can't pull all that together because of the intensity of the conflict. And so X has become a really great place for you to shine using your gifts of thought, but in a carefully worded and like a wise manner. You don't have to respond any sooner than you're ready to click post.
That's right.
So that's all I wanted to say.
That's right.
So feel free to please go back to your journey.
And you're right,
how you
that social media does allow the person that's in the actual public square and wants it to be open to debate. I mean, he's got to be like the king of the cut down jokes. He has to know how to say things right there on the spot and everything, and I'm just not that guy. I could talk about things on the spot that I've already thought about, but again, there's so many smart people out there, and you just never know what angle people are taking. So social media helps me think about things. So and that's one of my rules is don't be hasty in your reply. Now, the more I've done it, the more quickly I can reply certain things.
Because you've done the work that it springs out of you. You're like, I've thought about this before.
Exactly.
This is not something I have to look up.
And I've replied maybe about this topic 500 times. And I have figured out the pithy way to say it.
Can I pause for a moment on that? So a lot of people these days are saying things like, well, I just admire Charlie Kirk so much. He was just able to be right there. Like his mind was like a steel trap. He could just shout off this stuff. He knew exactly what to say in the exact right moment. And my mind doesn't work like that. I've heard that at least a dozen times, almost always from women who admire Charlie Kirk but know they could never do that. And what I think is important to point out is that that's true if you want to be like Charlie Kirk in the area he was strong and you're not strong. But you made a great point there. You have answered this question probably 500 times, and you're not exaggerating, because you have responded to certain questions online again and again, trying to reword it, trying to make it clearer, shorter, better examples. And I'm the same way, but not with the same issues that you're using.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm that way when people ask about addiction or codependency or sexual dysfunction or generational sin, because that's the stuff I've done a ton of work on. I have counseled and answered questions in those areas hundreds of times. So when someone on the walk today asks me for a definition of codependency, I have several in my mind. I'm able to pull out the one that best suits this person, give it to her in a way she can chew on, and not feel that anxiety of like, oh, this is the moment I have to defend. How do I know that the Bible is true? No, it's not like that. I've already answered this question for myself, and I'm living the answer every day. I tell my boys, I tell you, in my Mother's Day cards, Finn thanks me for working the program and recovering from my addictive problems, and he's so glad for that. So this isn't something that is a textbook thing. And I think it's the same for you. The reason you answered this question 500 times is that you have been persecuted, you have been spiritually and emotionally abused about the answer. And you've held that answer for decades. And you're not going to forget that answer.
Yeah. When I remember I'm glad you said that. And what I love about all those topics you shared are actually, I would call them politically adjacent topics. As a parenthetical, when people start talking about, for example, social welfare programs, and then they will throw in these little things like a compassionate person does not want to cut welfare programs because it helps the poor. And sometimes they'll even throw in a Bible verse that Jesus says you're supposed to help the poor. And I'm like, oh, and that interesting separation of church and state guy. All of a sudden the Bible's really convenient for you because of your particular point of view. And I could reply, Jesus did not support codependency.
Yes, you could.
Love is not codependency. Codependency is not compassion. And you suddenly throw something, and I say that it is politically adjacent because those are often the heart of the matter around certain political issues. And if you don't get to the heart of the matter, then you're just arguing pragmatics. Well, we gave this much in taxes to this program and it benefited, this many people, and there were only, fraud in this many of cases, so therefore it's a net positive. And you're like, codependency is never a net positive, period. Ever. In 100 million gazillion years, codependency is always wrong.
That's right.
And that's where most people are motivated. I support these programs, and they don't even realize how deeply codependent and sick in their soul they are. Mm-hmm. They're like, how could you be sick and want to be generous? I'm like, how? Because you can kneecap people with your generosity, which is codependency, and stealing from other people for your pet projects is also codependency. Both of those things are wrong. They're wrong to the people you stole from and wrong for the people you think you're helping.
And it's wrong for yourself because you're practicing your disease and calling it good.
People don't realize that
That's self-deception.
the codependent is always looking for the addictive person to have it be in relationship. And so a lot of codependents are looking around at dysfunctional people and saying, how can I keep enabling them so that I feel important?
That's right.
And then becomes
as alcoholics say, once they go dry and they're no longer drinking, stopping the addiction to the chemical was easy. Breaking my dependency on my codependent wife is hard.
Powerful. We've even talked about doing a whole episode on codependency and why it is a political ill. So I don't want to say too much, but that's really the heart of it. And the reason I say that is that you already have so many different tools just in those little topics that interest you to speak into political issues. You just have to see how...
my topics my little topics.
Sorry,
okay.
I meant the few you mentioned, which are enormous.
My little baby topics.
And gigantic babies.
Wait a second. This sounds like deformed baby.
Paul Bunyan baby.
That's better. Much better. I feel very validated.
His blue locks. Anyway, they are. You just have to see how it's being practiced on the political level and in public, and it gives you a special insight to speak into things that are. Elevate the conversation and really get to the heart of some of this stuff that people need to hear. Because the reason why politics is dysfunctional is because people are dysfunctional. And a lot of dysfunctional people are noisy. So.
It's a great point. But can we go back to your journey and why you are careful about some topics and not speaking into them? Because you can learn a lot about it and then...
This is what I learned early on as well. It's easy to be hearing what somebody else is saying and be like, oh, that sounds really good. Or that political point is a real zinger or whatever, and then
it's a gotcha often.
It's a gotcha. You put it in your pocket.
I'll be like, oh my gosh, if only all my liberal friends could read this. And then I'll be really tempted to retweet or copy paste or do a painting about it. I mean, this has happened a lot to me about the political topics.
Even non-political stuff.
All fired up. I'll be reading a book and be like, see, Dale, this is why we need to only eat this and not have meat anymore. And Dale, you're like, oh, okay, now we're going to not eat meat for a year.
The great thing about Jonalyn's optimistic outlook on life, and and why everybody likes you and your personality, is that you're just so open to receiving from people. The downside of it is that sometimes it's like, I just read this page and I'm convinced. And then, you're like, this is it. This is what we got to do. And then we have the conversation. I'm like, well, what about this, and this other thing? Did they even address that in the book at all? Because that would be helpful for me to convince me. And you're like, no, they didn't talk about it at all. It just sounded like a great idea. And then now it doesn't sound like such a great idea. And I don't mean to be a balloon popper, but we come at these things differently. Like there's so many things that wouldn't even be a conversation in our family or things that we would even do if you were not so open to bringing all that in and having those conversations about it.
Well, this is actually...
Like having really good dietary plans and be like, I wouldn't probably talk about that at all, but you bring them in.
I appreciate
we
that.
We wrestle with it, and then we come up with some really cool stuff that would otherwise never have happened.
You value so many of my good sides of my vices, and I appreciate that. But I do think there is part of me, my love, that adapting to other people's point of view so quickly and easily, when I lose track of what I actually believe, which happens a lot, is me actually dipping back into my codependency disease. Mm-hmm. So part of the reason I think people like me is that I seem just like them, because I actually am becoming like them, because I'm fusing with them emotionally, because I'm so excited about what they're saying. Yeah. And that is not actually health. So I have some more things to reveal about that out of some reading I did today, but I don't want to record all those for this conversation, because that's not the point of this conversation.
Well, that would really make it hilarious in a political conversation where somebody says this and this, and like, I agree. You're like, Jonalyn, that's the absolute opposite of anything you believe. Oh, you're right.
That has happened. I've been honking at protesters like, woohoo, and then afterwards Finn's like, Mom, those are the opposite side of what we believe. Like, oh, whoops. I thought it sounded good.
They got me with their rhetorical.
They look so
sign.
Enthusiastic and happy, and they were waving American flag.
It's like, I'm happy, they're happy, we're all on the same page.
Yay! I seriously
Hi, happy people.
Well, anyways, I don't want to go off into that tangent.
Okay, so anyway, back to what
Yes.
I don't want us to use too much time. But one of the big rules for me, huge rule
Yes.
online that
What
I learned
guides
after
you?
being whipped around and trying to like repeat other people and whatever.
What guides you about being careful to not just...
This is it. This is the takeaway.
Retweet gotchas.
This is the
What do you
takeaway
do?
for
Yes.
everything.
Okay, everyone's leaning
Here
in.
it is. Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. Your lane is what you care about and what you know and what you've wrestled with and you have the evidence that's convincing enough for you and others to arrive at your conclusion.
Okay, let's review those because they are... So this is what happens, is people are like, I care about that, I'm going to retweet it.
It can't be just what you care about.
So it's a 4-part thing. It's a 4-part checklist.
I didn't write down the 4. I got to rewind it to even see what I said.
You have to know about it. You have to have wrestled with it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to...
care about it.
Yeah, well, I already said that one. Care about, wrestle with it. You have to be able to offer your own arguments from your wrestling that can help other people not just know you care about it, but
You'd have evidence.
Have evidence to see your side.
That's right. And the evidence could be...
There was one other thing you said.
That was it. You have to care about it.
Okay.
You have to like know about it, what it really is,
Yes.
wrestle with it and have evidence. And evidence, the kind of evidence that would convince you and the people around you. It doesn't mean that it's a knockdown, drag out, this is a convincing thing.
That's good. I think the one that people are missing the most online is that they have to have wrestled with it. Because I think a lot of people, and this happens a lot from the swing from fundamentalist, abused Christians into progressive, abusive Christians, is they have a lot of care about a political issue. And they have been hurt by it, but they haven't wrestled with it. And by wrestling, you mean... I have looked at and understand the arguments on both sides of this.
That's right. And you are internalizing it. It's becoming part of your belief structure. And you understand it in a deeper way that is more than just, this is a political answer. This is if there were no politics, this particular topic or issue is still necessary for a good life in a community. That's sometimes what I go through in the thought experiment. If there's no constitution and no laws, should we just have open borders and let anybody who's anybody immigrate over your land? If there's no constitution, no laws?
Just invite anybody who would like asylum to come. Anyone, at any time.
Yeah.
Any age.
And to me, that helps me start to frame the issue. Be like, oh, okay. Well, if God's given me the land that I have to take care of and to steward, and that's his gift to me, and that the only way I could steward it is by not having people trample on it or having, encampments all over the place because there's no place for my cattle. And that will have a downstream effect that means there's no beef, and that means there's no food, which means there's more homeless, starving people with more encampments. That would be like, well, that doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. So you have to have boundaries. It's even true of our own family members, where you're like, hey, any family member that has a need doesn't mean you just invite them into your house and they get to stay in your house forever. And you have just this extra room. Oh, they're just the couch surfer. Well, they have a need right now. They have a couch surfer. And I'm like, okay, well, when does that couch surfing stop? Is it a temporary thing? Are they getting on their feet? Are they a healthy person? Are they contributing? There's so many different things that you have to go through.
It's true in churches. I can give another example of that. Is people see someone in terrible need, physical ill, got into an accident, the family's getting tired of caring for them, well, that's where the church needs to step in. Well, the church is getting tired of caring for this person back from the hospital around the clock. Well, this is when you push through because it's a situation where there's a need and doesn't really matter, but this is what the church does.
That's right.
And we're saying all that is unhealthy, is what you're saying.
All of that's unhealthy. So what do you need to know? What do you struggle with personally? What do you wrestle with? To understand this immigration debate, open the borders, limit immigration, no immigration, whatever it is, you have to understand and develop views about boundaries. What is my responsibility? Codependency. What do I protect? How do I help? What is love? What actually is love? How do we define love? Is love just having some sort of warm affection for somebody? Or is love willing their good? If it's their good, then they have a purpose. Now we're back into that strong purpose language again. What is their purpose?
I actually find it...
So when we do that, all of those things, if somebody to say, if debate topic, unregulated immigration in the United States, is it detrimental or is it not detrimental to the United States? You're like, okay, well, people can jump up and down, they'll all show up, they'll cheer for their team, they're all looking over saying, what's our party platform? Oh, that's our party platform? Okay, give me the sign, I'll do the party platform. But nobody's wrestling, nobody I shouldn't say, but fewer are wrestling with what is causing that issue and how to address it on the truly human level. Because once you start getting close to that kind of answer, and you've wrestled with it, you have data about it. It doesn't mean data meaning, here are some statistics. 50% of people do this and 30% do that. Like, that's not necessarily helpful data around a lot of these things. The data is what is reasonable, what is emotionally connecting, what allows people to do well together living in a community. That kind of evidence starts to frame a much larger picture about how, if I do it in my individual life, do it in my family life, do it in my community life, and now we're talking about national politics, so like you carry it with you into that. But it takes wrestling with it. Not cliches, not memes, not cute little political posters or party platforms. This is one area where I get in trouble in conversations a lot. Not get in trouble, but it becomes complicated. A lot of the views I have don't fit into party platforms because I find a lot of party platforms are stuck in contradictions. And it drives me nuts, but I'm like, that's because my reference point is what I've wrestled with about what is real about the world and the purpose that we have. My reference point is, how does God think about the world and how did he make it to be? Party platforms are often about a wide variety of special interests trying to meet the moment. And meeting the moment doesn't always remain consistent to what is morally good for people, if that makes sense. But people get so passionate about party platforms.
Well, I think they are bombarded with the needs, based on whichever party they've chosen, the needs of the moment that seem the most urgent, and the needs are only presented them through selective news sources, as if they're presented because the party has a solution to that need that they want their followers to take. So they'll see the pictures of the mothers ripped away from their children and being deported to Mexico, and it's like, how can you separate a family? Well, I know that's wrong. So then they'll hold the signs as like a compassionate Christian. I stand against ripping families apart. I stand against Trump. I stand against this wall. I am for immigration. And the thing is, especially if you have a sensitive heart as I do, or you're compassionate, you feel like you are less human if you don't agree with the problem as it's couched in those pictures and those stories.
As it's framed, yes.
And you don't agree with the immediate alleviation of their pain and suffering.
That's it.
And
so we're being marketed to, and that's how propaganda works.
Yes, and people are becoming the marketers by swallowing this, if it's in their news feeds on wherever people get their news, and then republishing it. And so what you're saying is you have to internalize what are the things you have wrestled with and develop arguments for that you can not just understand for yourself, but that can convince others. And you're absolutely right. I am much more interested in, why are you, Samantha, so interested in this news story? Why haven't you spent the time to look at the way your family treated you and they were not compassionate to you, and you're working out your own healing by voting for a party rather than facing that you were actually neglected as a child? I want to talk about them being neglected as a child. And then I want to let God sort out their politics. Because
Well, somebody else will help sort other politics. I mean, God will do it, but he's going to use other people.
he's going to use someone else who's gifted in that area, and
But
that's
you're
just not
exactly
where
right.
I'm gifted.
You're exactly right, though, that some people...
I'm actually not just not gifted, I'm not
to
interested.
To me, this is, I mean, as strange as it may sound, that is actually part of the political conversation, because you're dealing with a whole human being, and they have a disconnect between who they really are and how they live out loud and how they decide to do politics. And you're getting at, they'll never, ever see the light on what freedom means, as long as they continue to live in this reactionary state of trauma.
Yes.
You're trying to help release them from that reactionary state of trauma. As soon as that happens, and they see themselves as valuable and as a person that has agency, and no longer living in that oppression narrative that says, because I'm oppressed, I have power. All the oppressed people get together and we're going to start pushing our fists in the air and make whatever. As soon as that happens and they're released from that emotional tug, they can't be as easily manipulated by the signage and the propaganda. And they actually will be on a road of getting that sorted out over time, because they will start seeing the propaganda as enslavement, which was once a promise of liberation.
Yes.
So I want to say, you are doing political work, but you're doing it on a different level and about a different plane, or even on a different topic.
Yes, I agree. I agree, but I'm also very quick to say, I don't think I can help you with your marriage that's falling apart. I don't think I can help you with your husband that's cheating. I'm very quick to say those are not my areas. I don't have expertise there.
And that's why you stay in your lane. And
that's how
fits.
I stay in my lane.
I think that's awesome. When I started figuring this out, my handle on Instagram was revolving around the Second Amendment. Because as I was listening and talking and getting, beat back because my arguments just wouldn't hold up to some of these really smart people, I didn't have enough information, I hadn't thought it through enough. I realized, I kept coming back to this thing, that the Second Amendment is this really remarkable litmus test for people. And it's simple and it's clear. And so when you can champion that and the deep reasons for that, then it puts everybody in their place. Everybody gets sorted pretty quickly around whether or not human beings have dignity enough that they're worth protecting as individuals. And in that it's really not about the guns, because we see the contradiction. And all of the propaganda around getting rid of guns is a contradiction, because they love guns. They love them in the hands of police officers and military people and all the people that they control, that they don't want them in the hands of people they don't control. So that all that kind of stuff is fascinating. And it was from there that I felt like I could branch out into these other areas where I saw that I had some level of expertise because of my philosophical and theological training. I could start speaking into those lanes as well. But there are a lot of topics that I won't even touch. I'll just go right by them like, yeah.
What are some examples of those? Because I think it would be freeing for some of our listeners to know, like, they may admire you and how you show up on X. By the way, if they want to follow you on X, is it just Dale Fincher or is it Charting Liberty?
Charting Liberty.
Okay, and if they want to follow the posts that you're doing for the Living Room Bible, is that the same? Or
you go Charting Liberty and then you'll see it in my bio.
Okay, but what is the handle on X?
At Bible Living Room.
Bible Living Room is on X, or Charting Liberty.
Yep.
Okay, that's great to know for people who are curious.
And if you are listening to Back Porch, you can follow Back Porch. It's Back Porch DJ for Dale and Jonalyn.
We still have that account?
Yeah, I update it from when we.
You are amazing.
We send out
all these things.
Well, not that amazing, because I always forget, but it's there. It's happening.
Okay, good to know.
It's happening.
So what are some examples of people who are listening and are like, okay, Dale seems like he's really strong and like he could speak into all these topics. What are some things you do not touch?
War.
Really? That's like one of the things I would love to touch, but doesn't mean I know about it. But I like military history.
War is so dang messy. I think current events are hard. I like talking about policy and the ideas behind policy.
Okay.
But current events are really hard because if you'll notice that there's a lot of things, like you like reading war history, you said, a lot of things we really don't understand for 100 years.
Yeah, so
true. This Ukraine-Russian conflict, what do we understand about it? I know, and I bet anybody listening to this would be like, we understand this, and this. And be like, those are all the things that come through on the news. Yep. And I have seen all of it. Believe me, it's in my feed. It's all up in my face all the time, and I've seen it. I still don't know were to come down on it?
Can I give an example of why?
Is this NATO aggression? Is this Putin aggression? Is this what exactly is going on?
And now I want to give an example. So I'm reading a military history of the North African Front that was the first front in World War II in the 1942-43. And what is fascinating to me is they have taken the journals, the letters, and the written histories of all the men, the generals involved. And I'm seeing from the very beginning, when France was being pushed to Vichy, I don't even know if that's how you say it, but France was pushed out of Paris, Germans occupied Paris, and the French are trying to decide in northern Africa, do we fight for Germany like we were supposed to, or do we join the Allies who are landing on our shores and fight against Germany and try to reconquer Europe for freedom, for the Allies? And when the very first time the leaders of the French African forces meet the Americans and the British, these French are like, this is what we can do. We can fight with you if you give us, if you come in 6 months, bring your troops. We need this many. Okay, so the British general is like, okay, he knows in his mind, in like 2 weeks, there's going to be 40,000 troops landing in Africa. He tells the guy, okay, 6 months sounds good. So these French forces are like, we've got time. Just delighted with the time they have to develop the sympathy to fight with the Allies. And then they say, we can't do it unless you bring at least a million troops. And they're like, no problem. We have 1 million troops who can easily.
Wow.
They completely misrepresented the numbers and the timing. The French leaders go off very satisfied with the time and the forces that are coming, and they are misled from the beginning about what this is going to be like. Meanwhile, within a week, you have all these submarines coming with all the aircraft carrier, all the troops are arriving. Too few and too soon. And if you're reading the newspaper, depending on which ones you're reading, you're getting the wrong information about the war from the very beginning. And how long does that take to sort out? How many confusions and misunderstandings and justifications is that going to cause? That one meeting being misrepresented. And I'm just sharing that because it only comes out now.
Totally.
60,
Half
70,
of war is
80
propaganda.
years later.
Anything that you put in our newspaper is also being read by the enemy. So whenever everybody put the Ukrainian flags up and everything, I feel like they're just doing a religious ritual around their political religion because it's not that clear. It's not that helpful. They're like, we need to do this for Ukraine. I'm like, you're doing that because it rallied your political party. And if your political party can get you to rally around that cause, whether it's a good one or not, it helps them the next time you go vote. Because they can press and lean into that a little bit harder. If there's enough traction, it will prompt people to get off of their couch and go show up at the polls over a cause that may be the exact opposite of what they passionately believe. But it doesn't matter when it comes to the parties and voting. What matters is that you show up and vote for your team. That annoys me. So one of the reasons I get involved in political, and so the war to me is very confusing. So I look at different things. I'm like, who I think is better? Would it be better for Ukraine to win and Russia to be pushed back? Yeah, I think it would be better. I think if it was as significant as people said it was, Europe would have been involved much more quickly. U.S. would have been involved more quickly. We would have dealt with it. The issue going on in Gaza and Israel, been following that for so long before October 7th.
I think what's important is that you have opinions about these things. But that doesn't mean you're posting publicly about them. I think that's what we're trying to show here.
That also is very important. You're right, exactly. So I have opinions, I have views.
And you have studied it.
I don't know enough to stay in my lane and be able to articulate clearly what needs to happen here or what side I need to come down hard on. What I would like to do is for the fellow citizenry, because we need to be an active citizenry to preserve liberty. And we have grown so slothful in this. We think that going to the polls is all that matters. I want a citizenry that whether you go to the polls or not, we are securing liberty. In fact, our whole Constitution is also built around the idea, and our founding fathers built around the idea of nullifying laws. So even if you vote for the wrong people and they go up there and make a stupid law, the American people literally have a right to say, we're not going to follow that. That law's dumb.
Can we talk about this in a whole other episode?
We can, but I'm just trying to say.
I think that's really interesting.
I know we're coming up on our time, and I just want to wrap it up.
Please finish.
I want to know how that works. If you notice, I don't talk about the nullification movement on
On
X.
X.
If you want to know about that, go to the 10th Amendment Center. They talk all about it. It's very intriguing.
So I just got.
But what I'm trying to say
please finish.
Is that political conversations for me is trying to make an active citizenry, not so that they're standing on the street corners and protesting, and not so they go down to the voting booth and vote. I think it is important to vote. I don't think our system is too skewed or rigged yet, that our voting doesn't matter. Charlie Kirk helps me be more optimistic about that. I will say that's one of his legacies that for me. But I do think that if you are talking about the important things about how to live as free people, talking about those particular topics that are of interest to you, you've wrestled with, are in your lane, so that you can bring light, whether it be announcing it to a large group of people or individually like you do with people when you're talking about these particular issues, that creates an active citizenry. That's what builds civilization. And when people are building civilization, they become more and more involved and they have much more at stake. That we need the liberty to be preserved so that the civilization and the thing that I'm making and the thing I'm building and the thing I care about that is good can be protected. If you were spending our time binging on Netflix and refusing to talk about these particular issues, we're not building civilization. We are falling into the mire of consumerism and death. We don't want to go that direction. We want to take the torch that we've been handed. We want to make it brighter, and we want to pass it along, because these things are good, and good things are worth doing.
I, as an action point for our listeners, would recommend making a list of all the things you know you don't actually care enough about to wrestle with. And if you're one of those people who falls into the trap of just retweeting or reposting gotcha moments, is make a list of all the things you will not talk about publicly until you have wrestled with it yourself. And then I would say, with a friend, figure out what is the one topic that you do care about, you do want to wrestle with, you do want to speak about publicly, so that when your friends say, that's wrong because of XYZ, you can be compassionate and you can offer all the arguments that helped you.
That's right. And then it's a testing ground. Then you can learn. Like, here are some points that I've heard. What do you think about this? You don't have to be dogmatic about it. See what kind of reply they give. If they stand up, you're like, you know what? I'm going to remember that these particular points stood up. I'm going to try them again on somebody else.
Yes.
If they stand up over and over again, you're onto something.
Yeah.
So now you have responsibility. You hold that up. That's part of your torch.
And you can hold up your torch in just one-on-one conversations like I do, or you can hold up your torch on public discourse on X like Dale does. And there's so many other examples and ways in between. If you'd like to share one of those stories with us to encourage us that our words are helping you, we would love to hear it. So please reach out. You can send an email to me at hello@jonalynfincher.com or to Dale at hello@dalefincher.com.
Amen. That's right. And if you've enjoyed this, please subscribe and give us a positive review. And to engage us as artists, go to jonalynfincher.com to see Jonalyn's art and to hear stories of the Bible. You can go to my project, Living Room Bible, at livingroombible.com. We'll see you next time on The Back Porch.